Hello, fifth graders. Thank you for coming here today. Today I'm going to just do a quick review of what you read in Colonial Life. So we talked about the three groups of colonies, the New England, the Middle, and the Southern. This lesson focuses a little bit more on how the colonists lived during this time period. And I've shown you some videos already about that, but this one just talks a little bit more about some things. So the dangerous journey, when people are coming across the ocean, it was tough. It would take anywhere between 2 to 3 months. The ships weren't always the best. Sometimes they were crowded. Disease spread quickly. Often they could run out of food or water. So it was tough. A lot of people died on the voyage over here, but they did it for several reasons. They came over here because maybe they wanted to get away from wars back in Europe. There wasn't a lot of food back in Europe, so they wanted to get to a place where maybe they could find a better source of food. Maybe there wasn't jobs back then, so they wanted to come, or back in Europe, so they wanted to come over to the New World to start. Or maybe they just wanted land. They wanted to come try an adventure, find land, or even in some cases, religious freedom. So a lot of people came over here by choice. Some were forced to come over here. And that's what happened to slaves. Slaves were brought over here during the slave trade. And the slave trade is the business of buying or selling people. And so these slaves would be brought over to the colonies, and there they would be sold to be forced to work on farms or plantations. Families could be split up in the slave trade, which is very sad. In this picture here, you can see a slave ship. They were brought over. They packed as many slaves as they can into these ships to bring over to the New World. And a little bit later, in the next couple of weeks here, we'll talk more about the slave trade. Indentured servants also came over here, and we talked about indentured servants before. They were people that agreed to work anywhere between 5 to 7 years in exchange for land, a voyage over to the New World, and things like that. And when they were done with their contracts, they were often given farmland, animals, and supplies to start their own lives. And when the daily life of colonists over here, a lot of them lived in farms. There were some that lived in the cities, as you saw in the videos you watched the other day. Men, it was their job really to plant crops. They hunted, and they, taking care of the people that way. If the farms had slaves, if you had enough money to get slaves, and they would do the planting of crops. Women did household work such as cooking, gardening, sewing, cleaning, spinning, and weaving, all those things. And you saw an example of weaving in the videos from earlier this week. Children also had to work hard during the colonial times. They did chores such as feeding chickens, milking cows, gathering eggs, and cleaning, or any other chores that were needed around the house. When the children were not at home helping or studying, they'd play games. And I showed you videos a few weeks ago about that. They played marbles, kites, jump ropes, and any other types of games like that too. Learning a trade. They didn't really have schools in the country like we do now, where you go to school every day. But people needed to learn a skill, especially to start boys, so they could become an apprentice. An apprentice was someone who worked for a skilled person and was taught how to do something. And here you can see this apprentice here is being taught how to make cabinets. So he's an apprentice cabinet maker. So they would do that for several years, many years, until they became a master, and then they could go start their own business. And some of those might have been, like you saw, a cabinet maker. Some might have been a silversmith, so working with silver, printer. So using a printing press, as in one of the videos I showed you earlier, or a barrel maker. So those are some examples. Apprentices weren't paid, but they were getting trained how to do something. So they were taken care of with a place to stay and meal, so food. And as I mentioned earlier, at first only boys were allowed to do this, and eventually girls would, in certain areas, be allowed to become apprentices. Colonists often combined work with play. So as I mentioned earlier, or when we learned about New England activities, they would help. They'd have house raising gatherings. They'd have quilting bees, things like that. So they worked hard to help each other. The colonies, I'm not going to spend too much on the growth rate here, but the colonies were growing huge numbers between 1700 and 1750. A lot of people started coming to the colonies. Religious changes, we're not going to talk a whole lot about that, but as more people are coming over here, they're bringing new ideas with them, and religion was starting to see some changes there. So here, this page, Life on the Frontier, talks about life on the backcountry. So I'm going to show you this picture here. As more colonists are coming to the New World, they're settling along the shore because that was just easiest. So soon the land along the coast here is running out. So people have to start moving farther west. And they move into an area that's right here. It's called the backcountry. And this backcountry was a dangerous spot because there was a lot of unknowns there. A lot of Native Americans were there. So that caused some fighting as people are moving into the backcountry. So you can see the backcountry is this area of land between the Appalachian Mountains and the coast of the Atlantic Ocean. A lot of people are going there. They're clearing land. They're building cabins and then setting up farms. So it's a lot of work to clear the forest of all the trees and space, to make space that you need. The Yamasee War was something that caused because at first it happened near the Carolinas. The Yamasee were friends. They were getting along. But then all of a sudden, as more colonists are coming over, they need more land. So they're going to take that land wherever they can. So they started taking it from the Yamasee. And the Yamasee had enough. They said, you're taking our land, you're breaking promises. So those two things, the taking of land and breaking of promises, led to the war. The Yamasee, along with their allies, remember allies are on the same side, the Muskogee and Choctaw, they attacked the colonists. They said, we had enough. You're taking our land, you're breaking our promises. Enough's enough. We have to stand up for ourselves. So they attacked. Well, the Cherokee were helping the colonists because the colonists said, hey, if you help us, we'll give you weapons and other goods. So with the help of the Cherokee, the colonists were able to defeat the Yamasee in this war, which we call the Yamasee War. And the Yamasee had to leave and they went to Florida. They didn't feel safe there anymore. They lost all their land. And because of that, the Cherokee became the most powerful Native American group in the Carolinas. So that's one thing we're going to be seeing throughout the colonial times is the Native Americans, in this case the Yamasee, but also the Iroquois and other Native American groups up north, they're going to be fighting over land because as the colonists are coming, they need more land. And whose land are they going to take? The Native Americans. So that was a quick summary of what you read. And I didn't spend a lot of time on this because I think you've watched enough videos. Hopefully you watched all the videos that talked about how children lived, what life was like for people during colonial times. So I just want to do a quick review of some of the important parts that came out of the colonial life lesson. So thank you for taking time to watch and have a good rest of your day. Bye.